Welcome back everybody, my name is Tucker, and in today's video we're talking about one of the breakout stars of the later part of this NBA season, and that is Christian Wood of the Detroit Pistons. And this is a guy that had a really interesting path to this point of NBA relevance now. And so I want to go through and talk about why nobody wanted him for most of his career and now how he got to where he is now, having a pretty successful run, as I said, with the Pistons. But really quickly before we get started, if you enjoy the NBA, then consider subscribing. I upload every single day. Okay, so for Wood, we kind of have to go all the way back to his high school days because he did have kind of this roundabout entrance into the NBA. So let's go all the way back to his high school recruiting class. He was a top 100 high school player in the class of 2013, a four-star recruit out of California that was ranked 71st in his class on ESPN, ahead of guys like Jordan Bell and Monte Morris among the players that made the NBA out of this class. And just for a quick reminder, that 2013 high school recruiting class also included Andrew Wiggins, Jabari Parker, Julius Randle, Aaron Gordon, and Joel Embiid. Wood ended up committing to UNLV and didn't really have that notable of a freshman season. He had modest averages, was in the rotation, but only started 2 games. And that's kind of strange for a UNLV player that ended up making the NBA because for the most part, those guys are high potential one and done guys that leave after their freshman season, and Wood was out of the norm for this type of highly talented, high potential UNLV player that ends up making the NBA eventually. And so as I said, Wood did come back for his sophomore season at UNLV, and he came back as a much better player. He averaged almost 16 and 10 and nearly 3 blocks a game on a team that featured him and freshman Rashad Vaughn, as I mentioned, who was drafted 16th overall in 2015 by the Bucks, and freshman Patrick McCall, who would be drafted in the second round in 2016. Unfortunately, the team only went 18 and 15 and did not make the NCAA tournament, and then after his sophomore year, Wood decided to leave for the NBA draft. So at this point, as Wood was entering the draft, he was a long, athletic frontcourt player that certainly had some skills, but had a long way to go in terms of his overall skill set, as well as physically needed to put on some weight to be a really productive NBA player. Let's go ahead and look at some of the draft evaluations from NBADraft.net for him going into this draft. Strengths: versatile forward with a good face-up game, has power forward size as well as some guard skills, has the ability to drive the ball from the perimeter and finish, serviceable enough jump shot to be a stretch 4, rangy athletic defender who blocks shots and is fairly disruptive all around on the defensive end. Weaknesses: very skinny, needs to bulk up if he's going to be an NBA 4, gets bullied in the post when he tries to defend or post up on bulkier big men, also struggles to finish through contact or gain post position. Overall, Wood is essentially your typical talented power forward coming out of college. Lots of skill, lots of talent, lots of athleticism, and good face-up game, but still needs to develop strength, a post game, more polished rebounding fundamentals, and more of a willingness to play inside in order to thrive in the NBA. So that's a pretty typical evaluation in this day and age of NBA draft prospects, right? Guys that leave college probably before they should, but they want to capitalize on this potential that they have that hopefully other teams see in them, need to develop their skills as well as physically, but you can see the potential there, and you're hoping that that is enough to get you drafted high, right? Like that is pretty much encompasses the entire mindset around the NBA draft over the last 10 years at least, right? So going into the draft, it looked like Wood would potentially be a late first round pick, and then those projections dropped to an early second round pick, and ultimately he actually ended up going undrafted the year that he came out. And so this is the first point in which nobody really wanted Christian Wood, right? And it was for a couple of reasons. They either didn't think he was good enough right now to be in an NBA rotation, so they didn't want to take up a roster spot by bringing him in, or they never thought that he would reach the potential that he did have, or they just didn't want to wait around for that potential to develop. So ultimately teams just decided it wasn't worth it, and he did go undrafted. And so at this point, Wood's NBA career certainly not on solid footing, right? And as is typical for a lot of players that go undrafted, he ended up bouncing around to a ton of different teams through the first couple of years of his career. Let's go and go through those here really quickly. So after he went undrafted, he joined the Rockets Summer League team and then ended up signing with the Sixers actual team in September of 2015. He played his first NBA games with them in Philadelphia, but was also assigned to their G League teams many times throughout his rookie season. Then he was waived by the Sixers in January of 2016, picked back up by their G League team, then signed a 10-day contract with the Sixers, then was cut 3 days later, then ended up back on their G League team, then was signed to another 10-day contract with the Sixers, and eventually signed with the team for the rest of the season. And all of that happened with the Sixers from January of 2016, as I said, to April of 2016. Then he played with the Sixers in 2016 Summer League, signed with the Hornets afterwards, and spent time back and forth between the Hornets and their G League team. Then he entered the 2017 offseason as a free agent. Played in the Summer League with both the Mavericks and the Suns in 2017, but got no bites in the NBA and signed with a team in the Chinese Basketball Association, but never played for them and was waived. The following summer in 2018, he was signed by the Bucks, and by March of 2019, he had been waived once again. So there's more to this, there's more to his career now moving forward past this point, but let's just pause really quickly to review Wood's NBA career to this point. So in 43 career NBA games in terms of appearances for Christian Wood in the National Basketball Association, for a guy that was in the 2015 draft class, here we are now in March of 2019, and these are his total stats to this point. 133 points, 87 rebounds, and 13 blocks. Again, in 43 games for 4 years of a guy that was drafted back in 2015. So needless to say, he was not the most productive player to this point in his NBA career, but then he actually got significant run on an NBA team for the first time in his career because he signed with the Pelicans. He actually got some run in 8 games with the team and actually looked like he could be a pretty productive player, and then was subsequently waived when all those other guys got healthy, which now brings us to his current employer that he signed with in July of 2019, the Detroit Pistons. And for the first part of this season, he looked like a rotation piece, right? Nothing special, 15 to 20 minutes per game for the Pistons, getting significant run for the first time in his career, which is certainly a positive for him personally, given everything that he'd been to. But he wasn't doing anything crazy, right? Looked promising, had good percentages, good averages, but didn't look like a future star or anything. But then after the All-Star break, remember, there's no Andre Drummond, there's no Blake Griffin, there's no Reggie Jackson at this point. After the All-Star break, Christian Wood becomes a completely different player. His averages shoot up to 24 and 10 post All-Star break, and his percentages actually increase from the field and from three-point range as well, and obviously significantly increased minutes. And so now he's hitting threes, he's attacking the rim, he's finishing inside, he's getting to the free throw line, still needs to make plenty of progress defensively, but on the offensive end of the floor, all that potential that he originally showed in his original draft evaluation, we're finally starting to see those things from this guy now 4 years later, and potentially looks like someone that could be a significant future piece for the Pistons moving forward, and I hesitate to say this, but maybe even a future star. And really quickly, let's go back to those stats that I gave earlier in Christian Wood's first 43 NBA games. Again, he accumulated 133 points, 87 rebounds, and 13 blocks in those games. Just in 9 games post All-Star break this season, he put up 216 points, 86 rebounds, and 9 blocks. And so now we get to the title of the video, why did nobody want Christian Wood? Well, to be completely honest with you, he just wasn't very good, right? Like you don't get cut and waived and released that many times and move back and forth from the G League and almost go over to China that many times in the NBA if you have something significant to offer a team in terms of value. So essentially, he just hadn't developed the skills that he is now showing in Detroit and never really showed that much promise until he got significant minutes with the Pelicans, and that led to his current opportunity with Detroit. So throughout his career, he's obviously continually improved his skill set and now is taking advantage of his opportunity. But the most simple reason for why nobody wanted him was because of his youth, because he didn't properly develop physically, never really got stronger, never really developed his skill set to the point of actually deserving NBA minutes until now. And so moving forward, what's next now for Christian Wood? Well, if you watched some of my videos recently, you're probably thinking, hey, wait, isn't this guy, subject to the Josh Jackson effect? He's getting a ton of minutes all of a sudden on a bad team, getting a lot of opportunities, and his stats are skyrocketing up in a very small sample size. And you'd be correct to think that. The one thing that pushes back on that a little bit is his percentages are going up with his increase in volume of his production. So it's not just that he's getting more shots and hitting them at a lower rate, and that's why his production is going up, but he's hitting more shots, taking more shots, and at a higher percentage, which is definitely a promising thing. Now, moving forward for him in terms of his arc throughout the NBA in his career, I have no idea what this guy is going to end up becoming. In 9 games of significant high-value production for a bad NBA team is not going to make him into a star and does not make a career. However, it's very easy to say that this is the most promising stretch of Wood's entire NBA career and quite arguably his entire basketball career, and he looks like he could be a piece for this team. I obviously still want to see more than just 9 games, but he's at the very least an intriguing and an interesting piece for a Pistons team that definitely needs any kind of young talent that they can possibly put on this roster, and I think he's in a really good situation to continue to grow and develop, because it's been shown throughout his career that when he gets run, when he gets minutes, he's good, and he's definitely going to be getting run, and he's going to be getting minutes with this Pistons team now moving forward, assuming they can re-sign him long term. And I'm really interested to see if he can turn this into anything down the road after an entire, first 4 years of his career in which really nobody wanted Christian Wood. And there you have it. That is going to be the end of today's video, and I thank you all very much for watching. Once again, my name is Tucker. If you missed any of my previous videos, then be sure to check out the boxes on screen. Thanks again, and I'll see you all next time.